Welcome to another video in our virtual
farm gate tour.
Yeah, farm gate tour. Today we're going to talk about support structures for peas, beans, tomatoes, that sort of thing. So what we use here for our peas, rather than a trellis as most people will talk about, we use what's called a tomato cage. Used to be able to buy this wire as tomato cage wire from Bunnings. They don't sell it anymore. It's basically just cutting it into pieces and then folding it over and connecting it up into a big circle. To keep them upright, we use a metal stake, and there's just a bit of fencing wire linking it in to hold it all so it all doesn't fall over. I sometimes have to do it at the top, sometimes have to do it at the bottom. This one I haven't done at the bottom, I've just done it at the top because it's such a tall one. We use this for peas and tomatoes. We used to use it for beans, but because the beans are twining, it didn't really work. We also tried Bazella on it, which also twines, and it works fine, except when you have to take it all off. It takes forever to untangle the mess.
Yeah, it was really hard work, and we definitely don't want to be making more work for us in the garden. We want to actually be making less so we can spend more time growing the food itself.
Yeah. And up here you can see our tomatoes in their tomato cages.
And if you look closely, you'll be able to see that those cages actually have wooden tomato stakes in them. Oh no, they don't, do they?
They do.
Oh, okay.
That is wood.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. I thought my eyes were tricking me there for a minute, but yeah, the reason we don't use the wooden tomato stakes anymore, that's the last sort of lot that'll have that in them, is because they just rot too easily, so we've moved to the metal stakes now.
And we still make use of our wooden stakes. We put them down here on our strawberry bed to hold the netting down. Now you might say that birds wouldn't probably be able to get underneath that netting, but the problem is blue-tongued lizards. Blue-tongued lizards love our strawberries and they'll get in there and eat them all. We've got a thriving population of blue-tongues in our backyard. There's 2 or 3 that are quite big and they live here. This is a bird netting support. It's just PVC piping with a triple corner thing, and so that it's all just put together.
We don't glue it or anything.
We don't glue it or anything. It just sits there. It's the great thing about this plastic is it's plastic water pipe. It's UV treated, so it's going to last forever, and it just helps support this plastic soft netting, because if it's not supported, the birds will end up landing on it and getting tangled in it, which we don't want to happen. Also here we put a little screw in here so that we can hook the wire netting underneath the screw, and that just keeps it taut. So every leg's got the screw there, and we put this in to stop the blue tongue getting in there. Next thing to look at is our lettuce cage. This is our lettuce cage. Its job is to protect the lettuce from
Bowerbirds.
Bowerbirds, yeah, specifically bowerbirds. They're not too bad at the moment, but when come spring, when they're going to be mating and laying eggs, they get quite voracious and they will literally strip your lettuces of everything. They don't like spinach, which is great, so they don't have to be caged, but we do have to cage our lettuce. This is once again the PVC piping, just hooked together with T's and corners. We're using this is called mouse wire. It's big enough to stick your finger in, and that's about it. It's a solid wire. The reason for that is if we put a non-solid wire here, the birds would actually push it in and actually eat them. Even with this, they stick their beaks through there and try and nibble it, but because they can't push it in, they can't really get it. So this works really well. We wouldn't use a soft bird wire on this because they would simply push it in. With the strawberries, we haven't had that problem at the moment because it's supported well and kept well with the stakes, so it doesn't sort of shift all that much.
These cages for the lettuce are really useful too, because we put a handle on top and you can just pick them up, move them somewhere else.
Well, mainly for harvesting too, so you can pick them up, harvest the leaves and put them back down. You've got to make things as easy as possible to get what you want to eat out of it. Have a look at this lettuce here, which has been eaten by bowerbirds. You can see they like to just sit here and pull bits off just like that. And as I said, at the moment they're not voracious, but come spring they will literally kill that. Okay, let's take a look at our bean poles now. This is our design for holding our beans up. When we did it last year, we didn't have the central stake here, and it worked very well up until the wind. We got a windstorm and then it just blew over. So this will actually hold it up in the strongest of winds, and the plants, as you can see here, I've planted the beans fairly close together. You can see where each one's planted, all the little holes. So it's planted fairly tight in there. They'll all grow up in a massive thing up to here, and then they'll just grow on each other further up. The great thing about this is when it's all dead, you just pull the stakes away from the beans. So it's very, very easy to clean up the mess when it's all finished. Okay, we'll end it there and go out the front.
Hello again, here we are in our front yard, and what I did here was something we hadn't tried before but actually worked really well. These tomatoes had grown so rambunctiously that they outgrew their cage here, the one they were originally planted in, and so I put another cage in next to them and just used a wooden stake temporarily to hold that up, and then I threaded the extra growth through this cage, and you can see it's actually supporting it very well. And so that was a way that we actually saved those tomatoes, because otherwise there was so much growth that they would have just been completely in the way, and so we would have had to take them out. But now, because I've put this extra cage here and threaded them through, we can keep them growing on. And it's winter here, but they've started to fruit again, and we're really looking forward to eating some good tomatoes. These are cocktail tomatoes, just a really nice size, about that big, and they're delicious. Also like to show you some cages here that actually have the peas growing in them. So you can see the peas have come right up to the top, coming out the cage. Some of them have escaped from the side, but they're still being held up by the cage. And you can see they're very healthy and vigorous, and they've come right up the top.
Actually, there's two different types of cages there. There's one of our old one, which is the tomato cage, you can
with
see,
the big wire,
and right next to it is the stuff we have to use because they don't have tomato cages anymore, and it's called dog wire. And it's not as good.
It's not as heavy gauge, and the gaps are less, and so it is a little bit more difficult to work with, but that's what we have to do. Okay, so let's go and have a look up here as well at some
actually
that we were using, and this is to give you an idea what they look like, just like that.
And here's our new smaller stakes we've been using, and because they're smaller, we have to tie them at the top and at the bottom, which you can see maybe in there.
And then these are tomatoes that have been in these cages, and these tomatoes are close to this brick wall. They're in this microclimate at the front of the house, which the wall heats up and then radiates the heat again later in the afternoon and into the night. And so these tomatoes are incredibly healthy, growing and happy here in their cages. You can see they've got some lovely racemes of tomatoes here. These are larger ones. There's a couple of different types of tomatoes in here.
We wish we knew what they
Yeah,
were.
yeah, we planted a whole lot of different ones and then forgot which ones we planted in which cages, so it's a bit of a lottery. But you can see that some of them are, this one is a grape tomato, and that actually just came up
From last year.
From last year's you know, tomatoes, and it's actually outside these two cages, but I've threaded it in to the cage, and so the cage is supporting it as well.
So would you like to show people how we put our things back in our cages?
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so see, this one's escaping and it will then end up growing down like that, but we don't want that to happen, and so we very carefully bend it back in and slip it under there like that, and there we go. It's supported by the cage again. There's a few here, so you have to be careful because if they've escaped too far and they don't bend, well then you will break them off. So you have to be really careful and just bend them gently back into the cage.
Oh, done well.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I need to say about the cages and everything today. That they just make gardening so much easier. If you can get the right support structures, it makes it easier.